Hey, girls, welcome back to AVY-HD. We are kicking off another Unfiltered episode in season 2, Life Unfiltered. Today, we are talking about conversations, communication, and the way that ADHD impacts our closest relationships. For the best of us, for the most normal of us, love, connection, communication can be super messy, but ADHD definitely complicates the mix. So let's talk about it a little bit. Um, I have been married to a very neurotypical man for the last 12 years, and we definitely struggled with communication a lot. And one of the reasons that we struggled with communication was that we didn't understand the baseline of what each one of us was saying. And what I mean by that is there are certain patterns of communication in the way that people with ADHD communicate and in the way that people who are neurotypical communicate that don't align well with each other. So I'm saying one thing and you're hearing something completely different, and we're just essentially having two different conversations. Each one of us leaves frustrated, but we don't even know what the other person is frustrated about because we literally didn't have the same conversation. There are a lot of kind of hot button ADHD communication issues that a lot of us know and that we talk about a lot, like zoning out or not really paying attention, zoning out, leaving the conversation and then looping back in, feeling weird about asking someone else to repeat themselves. But when it comes to our relationships, it's so much more than communication. It's about forgetting important dates or important things. It's about like dysregulation, feeling emotionally overwhelmed when you're communicating, and how we show up in our relationships when those things are difficult for us. So as always, we need to take a lot of responsibility for our own actions. We need to take responsibility for the way that we show up and we communicate in our relationships, even when it's hard for us. So as always, there are two pieces. What is going on in my brain and what is happening? And then how am I processing it and reacting to it and putting it back out into the world? When you zone out in a conversation, that's going to happen, right? There are times that your attention is going to get caught by something else that's a little bit more shiny and it's going to divert. That happens naturally with ADHD. Your attention goes to the place that you want it to. That doesn't mean that you have a right or a pass to not listen to people in conversations. It means that you have to put in more effort. And if you're talking to somebody and you're interested in hearing what they have to say, and you know that you have ADHD, and you know that it's going to be difficult for you to listen, put your phone down. Turn it upside down. Make sure it's not on vibrate. Don't have that flashing thing on. Don't put yourself somewhere where your attention is going to be distracted. Don't look at the television screen. Put yourself with your back to the TV. Don't intentionally set yourself up for failure and then blame your ADHD for communication challenges or like the subsequent relationship challenges. And I know I just like jumped straight in with you guys this week, but I guess I'm feeling spicy, so that's just how we're going to do it. The same thing goes with forgetting important dates or details. If somebody told you something, and this is a person who you love and a person who is important to you, you're not going to forget. At work, we have systems that we put in place to make sure that we don't forget things. We write things down. We have calendars or sticky notes or whatever system it is that you've come up with to make sure that you don't forget stuff. Why? Because if you forget things consistently, then you're going to get fired. So somehow we manage to not forget things when our job is on the line or when we've deemed it important enough. But there are other things that one could argue is more important, like the relationships in your life, when it's our boss who is under us and wanting to make sure that our deadlines are being upheld. we make sure that we're doing that. We make sure that we set deadlines in our calendar. We make sure that we set reminders in our phone. If you have to wake up to catch a flight, you set 14 alarms. But if it's your husband's birthday or your wife's celebrating something with her friends and you don't put it in your calendar, what that demonstrates is that you're not putting in the same amount of effort as you would at work or in another area of your life. You have challenges if you have ADHD or any of the neurodivergencies. We're talking about ADHD a lot, mostly today, because it comes with some very special things like impulsivity, like reactivity, like um, just general forgetfulness and going where your attention takes you. And if we know that about ourselves, then that is not allowed to become our excuse. It's not allowed to become our crutch as to why we cannot do things. It becomes our information that allows us to learn to do things better for ourselves. You don't get a pass for being forgetful just because you're forgetful all the time. Now, with that, it's okay. You will forget things. So the way that I do this is, of course, I not only have a calendar where I input everything, but I also have an executive assistant. And anytime I have any thought of anything I need to remember, I text it to her and she makes sure that it ends up on my calendar and that I get the reminders that I need. And having that system has really saved me from a lot. But sometimes I'll forget to tell her that I have something. I won't tell my assistant and then it doesn't end up on my calendar and then I forget it. And then I really am very hard on myself. And in those moments, we need to understand that it happens. We mess up sometimes, and that's okay. And bringing that back to ADHD in our relationships, the only way for me to be okay about that is for the people around me to be okay about that, for my support system to understand me and to understand my needs, and for there to be constant and open communication about what those needs are and how I intend to show up and how I need them to show up for me in order to help me. So what do I mean by that? In my family, my kids know mama's forgetful. Now, that doesn't mean that mama's allowed to forget things. It doesn't mean that I get a pass. Again, like if you told me that something important is happening, the expectation is that I remember it. And sometimes I'm going to forget. So when I forget, my kids are very gracious with me. And they say, yeah, mama's forgetful. Again, not as an excuse, but so that they know for themselves, I'm not forgetting you because you aren't important to me. I'm forgetting because I'm forgetful. But I remember all of the rest of the times because you're important to me and because I put in so much effort to remember and make sure that I have my processes and systems in place so that I remember the important things. And it's always about finding that balance of being permissive of yourself and kind and setting up the systems to make sure that you are successful in your life and in your relationships. This isn't about failure. It's about learning how ADHD interacts with the dynamics of your relationships and learning how you can show up your best within those dynamics. So let's talk a little bit about triggers and just common pitfalls that lead us to communication struggles when we have ADHD. So what we know about people with ADHD is that we have a higher level of impulsivity, and we also kind of like arguing. It feels kind of nice to argue. It feels like scratching an itch, like kind of just fun. Um, it's not that way for everybody. And we need to remember that sometimes when you're arguing with someone, for you it feels fun and for them it feels like an argument. So you want to make sure that you have your arguing partners where you can safely release those emotions. Y'all have met my friend Mirav on a previous podcast. She is my arguing partner. When I need someone to rage at the world with me and when I need someone to yell back and forth with me, I'm going to call her and we are going to fight. That's okay because she knows that she is that person. We have previously discussed it. It's okay if I just call her up to argue. She knows that she's that safe person for me and I'm that safe person for her. The impulsivity in conversations not only can lead to just sensory overload, increased arguing, withdrawal from conversations, but also interrupting, oversharing, things that make other people really uncomfortable when they're talking to us. There is nothing more frustrating than being constantly interrupted. It's annoying. But when somebody with ADHD has something that they want to share and they're so excited and they really just want to talk about it, it just kind of slips out of their mouth and they can't really help it. And sometimes maybe they'll be talking over you. But ultimately, the result of that is that it's disrespectful. You didn't intend to be disrespectful. You intended to communicate your excitement, but ultimately it's disrespectful to interrupt someone. So you're not allowed to interrupt them. Again, now I have some people who we are allowed to interrupt each other. And if we don't want the other person to interrupt us, we will say at the beginning of the conversation, hey, I just need to get through this whole thing. Like, don't interrupt me. Just to let them know, communicate what your needs are. Having those types of disclaimers in conversation and knowing your safe spaces to communicate in specific ways can allow you to communicate very authentically with your ADHD without being a general jerk to the people you come in contact with. We all know it's not appropriate, again, to interrupt your boss. You wouldn't ever interrupt your boss because you have the capacity for self-control. You need to be able to bring that same capacity for self-control to your other conversations. But a lot of these communication challenges, like interruptions, can be solved with your safe people. Is it okay if I interrupt you in conversations? That's like, will that distract you, or is that an okay way for you to communicate? That's a normal question in my life. You set boundaries that are acceptable within the dynamic of a particular relationship. So in my household, right, when I'm talking to my husband, again, he's very neurotypical. So I will clarify to him whether I'm yelling at him or whether I'm yelling towards him. Yelling at you means you did something wrong and I am yelling at you. That doesn't really happen a lot in our house. Yelling towards you means I have big feelings about something and I really want to yell, but you don't actually you're not the cause of these big feelings. So please don't take any of this yelling personally. It's not about you. I just need to yell about something. Are you okay if I yell towards you right now? And like they'll either say yes or no. I have a couple of friends like that as well. I can call them up and say, I really need to yell towards you. And like they will let me just yell about whatever it is I need to rage about without taking it personally, because they know it's not about them. They know that this particular emotional dysregulation or this particular thing that I need to get out doesn't have to do with them. More on the challenges of communicating with ADHD, but there's so much content about the challenges of communicating and the challenges of our life and the challenges of what we experience that I really want to talk about how we can just live and be good despite and including our challenges. So let's talk a little bit more about what we can do. The first thing is when we're communicating and you feel that sort of like frustration in your communications and that anger and that emotional dysregulation, for me personally, that almost always comes up when I'm feeling misunderstood. When I feel like I'm being really clear in my communication, but the person across me is not understanding what I'm intending. That really, really, really frustrates me. And for a lot of us ADHDers with our impulsivity, that can mean lashing out angrily. That can mean lashing out emotionally. That can mean breaking down in tears. It can just mean a lot of emotional dysregulation. That's very uncomfortable. Like, I don't like being like that in front of other people. Like, it's ugh. Like, I'd rather do my processing in private. So the first thing that, again, you could do is just create space for yourself. Pause. process. Take a breath. Nothing is happening right now. There is no emergent need for you to respond right now. You can take the time to think through what you want to say and respond then. And that's okay. You can avoid impulsive reactions. You can avoid hurting people's feelings, and you can avoid conflicts in your relationship that are unnecessary. The next thing that you can do is really to set clear expectations in your conversations. Not for every individual conversation necessarily, but with the people, right? So when you have your support system, and we've spoken in the past about how the number one indicator of success with ADHD is having a strong support system, clarifying your expectations with the people around you. This is what I need from you. This is what I'm looking for. And in an individual conversation, if you already know what you need, I'm looking for advice. I'm looking for a listening ear. I'm just looking to talk, and I really don't want you to say anything. I need a hug. I don't need a hug. If you already know what you need, ask for that. Set that expectation in the conversation. Allow the other person to show up for you in the way that you need them to show up for you by asking for help within that conversation. And then in other types of conversations that are not necessarily with our most closest people, you really can clarify expectations in this conversation. What are we looking to solve here? What are the goals of our conversation? That way you can understand what it is they're looking for. People with ADHD and autism especially really need context. We are contextual thinkers. So you can't just ask me something and expect me to answer without giving me the text of what you're asking. And it's okay and even preferable to go and seek that context for yourself. Set the intentions for the conversation, and that way you can more likely be on the same page in your conversations. And when something goes wrong in your conversation and you overreact or you go a little kooky, repair that quickly. Apologize authentically. What does that mean? An authentic apology involves acknowledging what you did wrong, acknowledging how it made the other person feel. For somebody with ADHD, it probably involves explaining the intention behind what happened if there was something that was misunderstood. And apologizing, of course, sincerely, and saying how you're going to try and do better with that in the future. So, for example, if I yell at my kids, what I'm going to do after that very quickly is go to them and say, I yelled at you. I'm so sorry that I yelled at you. That was really not acceptable of me to do. You probably felt really upset at me for yelling at you and probably even angry. Next time when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to try really hard to remember to take a deep breath so that I don't end up yelling at you. I'm really sorry. Is there anything that I can do to help? 10 times out of 10, my children accept that apology. 10 times out of 10, anybody will accept an authentic apology. We struggle when apologies lack authenticity because it feels like you're just doing something to check a box. But if you really did something not acceptable in a conversation, then just go back and apologize. I'm gonna end with this. Our loved ones and our employers and our friends really benefit from having someone in their life who has ADHD. We are creative, we are funny, we are fun and loyal, and there are so many positives about having ADHD. And there are also a lot of negatives. And those negatives can weigh very heavily on the people around us. And we really, really have a responsibility to them and to ourselves to be kind and gentle with ourselves and kind and gentle with our loved ones who put up with our shenanigans. So don't forget to tell them. Don't forget to tell them that you appreciate them. Don't forget to let them know that you're not always the easiest person to communicate with. Don't forget to tell them that you value that they listen to you and that they really want to understand who you are. And if you don't feel that the people around you feel that way, then you can find a community here because there are plenty of people who know how you feel. And together we can make each other feel seen and understood as we go through each of our own individual process. The goal is not perfection. The goal is always progress. The goal is to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. The goal is to know a little bit more about myself and the world and the people around me. The goal is to try a little bit harder. The goal is to do a little bit better. And if you did better, even a tiny bit than yesterday, then you're winning. We're going to talk a lot more about ADHD and communication. This episode got away from me. I could talk about this forever and ever, honestly. But if I could leave you with a challenge, and please check in with us and let us know how it goes. This week, take a minute to reflect on your communication style. Try and look at yourself as a scientist and an observer, just taking a look at how you communicate, how other people react to your communication. Are there patterns that you can see? What do you notice? And then try one of the strategies that we spoke about today to see if it might improve some of your communication or if it changes it in any way. Next week, we are going to be keeping the Life Unfiltered theme going with a new conversation about ADHD and authenticity in the workplace. This is another topic that is near and dear to my heart. Um, in the meantime, we're looking forward to seeing you at the webinar hosted on December 20th. Check us out on Facebook, socials, everywhere that podcasts are available at AVY-HD. That's the AVY-HD. And I will see y'all next week. Bye.